This video is going to show you how to use Respondus Lockdown Browser and Monitor, and I'm also going to show you what it looks like to set it up from a student perspective. As you can see, I already have a couple of quizzes ready to go here. We're going to be setting up this Test New Quiz Lockdown for the Lockdown browser. Now we know that classic quizzes are going to go away soon, but until then, just to let you know, Lockdown Browser will work with classic quizzes or new quizzes exactly the same way. So we're going to do this Test New Quiz Lockdown here. The first thing you need to do is make sure that Lockdown Browser is in your course navigation. If it isn't, go into your course settings, click on the navigation tab at the top, find Lockdown Browser, and drag it up into the top box. Make sure that you scroll down to hit save when you're done. Only instructors can see this link in the left side bar, so don't worry about your students accidentally changing your Lockdown Browser settings. Once you have that in your navigation, click on Lockdown Browser. This will open up the Respondus dashboard. There's a whole Getting Started section. There are video tutorials that you can watch and that you can share with your students. There's guides and support. And if you're interested in using any of these with Pearson or McGraw-Hill Alex, there's also information about using those in those systems. So let's go back to your dashboard. To turn on Lockdown Browser for one of your quizzes, find the quiz name. If it is all the way at the bottom, like this Test New Quizzes, you might want to change the order of these quizzes, which is very easy. All you have to do is click on this little arrow next to the quizzes signifier. The reason I'm going to tell you to do that, if things are all the way down at the bottom, sometimes Respondus will actually cut off the screen and you won't be able to access all of the settings. And they haven't fixed that yet. So if they do, I will let you know. But for now, just make sure that whatever your quiz is, it's not all the way down at the bottom of the screen. So to turn on the Lockdown Browser settings, all you have to do is find your quiz name, click on the arrow to the left of the quiz name, and click on Settings. If you want to require Lockdown Browser for this exam, click on the little dot. So within here, you have a couple more advanced settings. For those of you who have used Lockdown Browser in the past, you'll know that you used to have to turn on a special setting for students to use iPads with the Lockdown Browser. That is now an automatic setting. You do not need to turn that on anymore. There are a couple of different settings here that you can feel free to change yourself. You can allow them access to specific web domains. If you want them to see one specific website, you can do that, or even several specific websites, you can do that. You can enable calculators on the toolbar, either a standard or a scientific. You can enable printing from the toolbar. And then a little more complicated one is lock students into the browser until exam is completed. Now, for this one, it is a little complicated because it doesn't necessarily say it out loud. But what this does is it locks students into the browser not until they are done with the test, but until the test is completely done in your class. They will be locked into that either until after the due date passes for the exam, or they will be locked in until every single student submits that exam. So if you really want to lock them in until absolutely everything with the exam is done, you can go ahead and click that. However, if you don't click that, they will still say stay locked into the exam. They will not be able to Alt-Tab. They won't be able to open any other windows while they themselves are still taking the exam. So those advanced settings are totally up to you. All you really need to click is this little dot right here. Now down here, once you turn on those Lockdown Browser settings, that will also open the options for Respondus Monitor. So Respondus Monitor, there are a lot of settings in here as well. If you do want to require Respondus Monitor, it will pop this warning up for you just to kind of give you a little bit of information about what Monitor is, but you don't have to have it show that every single time. So there's a lot of options here as well. You can choose what it is actually going to record and how it's going to record it. You can have it automatically automated proctoring for your exam, or you can do the proctoring yourself. So that's totally up to you. If you do decide to do automated proctoring, which historically is what we've seen happen at the college for people who do use Monitor, you will have to set up a couple of different settings here. You will decide what students are going to see and what kind of things they will do before they are able to start their exam. They have to have a webcam check and they have to have face detection. But all of these other checkboxes, you can decide if they have to do an environment check, if they have to show ID to prove it's them. That is all totally up to you. Also, with the face detection, there are different options here as well. Now, for the advanced settings here, you have to turn on allow use of an iPad for this exam if you have students that are using an iPad. Now, I will give you one warning though. Respondus Monitor will work with an iPad sometimes. And sometimes it just absolutely will not function with an iPad. We have more problems with iPads than any other device using this lockdown browser. So if you really, really need to use Monitor on your exam, tell your students that it's really not a good idea to use an iPad. They should be using a larger device, a laptop of some kind, or a desktop computer. If your students don't have access to those things, every single computer lab on campus has Lockdown Browser installed on those computers. So if Pierce is free, if the labs in Pierce are free, the labs in Maine are free, they can absolutely take an exam on one of those computers. They are all set up for it. So that's just one warning there. That iPads, they tend to work okay with the Lockdown Browser, just this first part, but they do not work well with the proctoring. All right. You can see you can also allow this exam to be additionally be delivered in a proctored lab with no webcam. So that's totally up to you again. You can enable show your work at the end if you want to, and you can edit the text for that as well. Have them take a photo of that work. And you can also see what this looks like yourself if you want to go through these steps by entering a demo student name, and then you can act as that student within Lockdown Browser. But again, all of that is totally up to you. So for right now, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to do the entire proctoring method. All I'm going to do is turn on the Lockdown Browser for this test. That's all I want. I just want them to be locked in, not be able to open any tabs, not be able to open any other windows. All I want is for them to have the Lockdown Browser. So then I'll click Save and Close. And that's it. Once you turn on your Lockdown Browser settings for a quiz, these settings will come over in every single course copy. So if you want to use the same exact settings semester after semester, you can absolutely do that. Now, one thing you do have to do if you're going to use Lockdown Browser, you have to make sure that at the very beginning of every semester, before you give them any of these quizzes, all you have to do is click on this Lockdown Browser link. At the beginning of every semester, Lockdown Browser just needs a signal from you to say, yes, I want to use this. Yes, I am okay with using all those same settings. Yes, I want students to be able to access the Lockdown Browser. And that's literally all you have to do. At the very beginning of every semester, you click on this link and a little box will pop up that says, congratulations, you have activated Lockdown Browser for this semester. That's all you have to do. Now, one other thing I will not even suggest, require of you, if you are going to use Lockdown Browser, make sure that you give students a practice quiz before you have them take a real quiz or exam through this. If you go into the Getting Started tab in your Lockdown Browser screen, you'll see that they suggest this as well, create a practice quiz. We're going to go into what students have to do in order to use the Lockdown Browser now, so I'll explain more of why that's important. But please, if you're going to do a Lockdown Browser connected exam, have them do a practice quiz first. So let's go into now what this looks like as a student. Okay, so right now I am acting as a student in a course that is using Respondus, and this instructor has made a practice test for their students. So this is a really great introduction to that practice test. You can see when a student actually clicks on that exam, they are going to see a introduction to their exam just like they would any other quiz. And this is a new quiz. So the instructor here has put instructions that this is not graded, this is just practice. You can retake it as often as you like, and that is important to set up as well. If your students get a new device, they are going to need to access the practice test again. So make sure you just open this up for unlimited attempts, as it is just a practice exam. And you can see she's also put in contact information for me if something goes wrong, and also when to complete this by to make sure that they have respondents going for their first real exam. So as a student, I'm going to click on Take the Survey, but it is not going to take me to that survey. It is going to take me to this little note here about Respondus Lockdown Browser required, and it's going to give me this link. This link is very important, and this is why it is so important to give your students a practice exam before giving them a real exam. Students need to download the specific Mount Aloysius College version of Respondus Lockdown Browser. They cannot just Google it and download whatever they find online. They have to have our specific link. And the easiest way to get that for them is to give them a practice exam. So what students need to do, they need to click on this link to get to that specific Mount Aloysius College version. And you can see here, it says download Lockdown Browser for Mount Aloysius College. And there's a big download button. So that link will take them to whatever their specific device needs. If it is a Windows computer, they will see exactly this. It will read what their system is. If it is a Mac computer that runs on iOS, they will see that option here and it will give them the download option for iOS. If it's an iPad, it will take them to the App Store and they will download the Lockdown Browser app. And if it's a Chromebook, they will download a Chrome extension for that instead. But no matter what it is, this link will automatically read what device they have and give them the correct download button. So when they click that download button, that is going to go into their downloads and they will have this file downloaded onto their computer. So let me pull that up for all of you. Okay, so that will download the installation file onto their computer. This will install the Lockdown Browser program on their computer. Now, unfortunately, at this point, I won't be able to record what's happening anymore, but if students double-click this, it will open up an installation program on their device that will allow them to install Lockdown Browser. Here's the part where a lot of students get confused. Once they install that program or that extension in Chrome, if they have a Chromebook, or the app, if they're using an iPad, once they install the Lockdown Browser, that's where they have to take their exam. A lot of students will go through the whole installation process, not really realize that there's another program on their computer now, and they will continue to keep coming back to Canvas, keep clicking on this download button, and not understand why the Lockdown Browser is not working for them. They have to open up that Lockdown Browser program. So this is what that program looks like. Whenever they get it downloaded, tell them to keep that in a place that they can find it, whether it's on their desktop or if it's in their app folder or if it's on their home page of their device. Tell them that this is what they will need to open. So I'm going to open this program for you now. When students first open Lockdown Browser, it will tell them of anything that they need to close in order to keep going with this exam. There will be a button that says close applications and continue, or they can exit the Lockdown Browser to close whatever they need to on their own. So at this point, it's not going to let me record my screen anymore because I do have to close out of any kind of recording program, anything like Zoom, anything that's Microsoft Teams, anything at all that might interfere with my exam. So I'll just tell you basically how it goes. Whenever students do log into that lockdown browser application, they will sign into their Canvas right then and there. It will look just like Canvas. They will find their course that they need to take the test in. They will click on that test, and only once they open that in the lockdown browser program will they be allowed to actually start that exam. So they will be, as the name suggests, locked into the exam completely until they submit the exam or until the exam is over, depending on what kind of settings you have set up there. So whenever they submit that exam, that will come into your gradebook and into your speed grader just like any other test. You do not need to do anything special to access any of their submissions or any of their answers. You'll be able to see everything in SpeedGrader just like any other assignment. I hope this helps you and your students use Respondus more effectively in your classes. Happy building!